don't know if I should be politically correct to say this, but I would still say the more the disruption, the better, or it kind of makes the market much more firm and kind of gives us more room to play with.
When you say disruptions, you mean the black swan disruptions?
No, not only black
COVID
swan
and things like
disruptions,
that.
just usual disruptions. Could be a small strike, it could be a couple of cyclones, it could be bunkers not available at the port. Like right now, we are seeing two disruptions. We are seeing Panama Canal drying up, so not all vessels are able to call Panama Canal. There's huge congestion. And second is we are having some rebel attacks at the Red Sea, Yemen, whereby ships are not going through Suez but going through Cape of Good Hope. Now, when such disruptions happen, typically it results in a stronger market. Because some ships are stuck up, some ships are doing longer, so your turn might has gone up. The supply of ships is much less in the market. So obviously the hires would the freights or the hires would kind of move up.
Hi everyone. We have a very interesting guest for you today. We have Captain Surit Bose. Surit started his career in 1997 as a seafarer, and after spending 10 years at sea, he decided to change over to something which is very different. He went into the world of chartering and trading of ships. Now, this is an area where even I am not that aware of this segment of shipping, and I'd love to know more about this from him. He's got an expertise of more than 15 years in commercial trading and chartering of ships, and over this time he has worked for several companies, and then right now working for a Norwegian company and heading their Dubai branch, taking care of trading of ships in the Indian Ocean primarily. So let's meet Surit and let's see what he has to say about that. Hi, Surit.
Hi, Devashish.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. You are calling it a podcast. I will go by that term. Yeah, I don't know how much of an expert I am, but I would love to answer any query of yours or of your viewers. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, I've known you for more than 25 years, or is it 27 years? Almost 27 years now, and we started our careers together. In fact,
Yes.
and then. So what? I mean, how was your journey as when you started off as a cadet, and then essentially you then transitioned to this new phase? I mean, the new sector of shipping. So how was that transition?
I mean, we all started as cadets, and it was. When that time you're young, you're sailing, you're seeing new places. It's kind of quite adventurous. The money is also quite decent. So that kind of keeps you going. But you would notice this, that, when you're sailing, every kind of seafarer kind of tends to have, let's say, a fascination for a particular domain within the huge domain of shipping, right?
Exactly.
So, like, you are doing some amazing work in the field of training and research. There are some seafarers who get very excited, about crewing. Some people they like to study the SOLAS, they like to study the MARPOL. That's their kind of fascination. For me, maybe I was not a very academic student, so unfortunately, I was not very, gung-ho about going after books about the huge data and about memorizing them. But I am kind of, let's say, a little bit of a people's person. So I like talking to people. I like kind of interacting. So anything that was happened to do with commercial always kind of caught my eye when I started off as a seafarer. I remember, when the office used to fix a contract, they would send a charter party, and the charter party would be printed and it would be kept on the bridge. And as a junior officer, I didn't see much people reading it. I always wanted to read them.
Right.
And then I had a lot of queries. I mean, there was a lot of terms, and unfortunately, there was not much help I got, right? I mean, these were the days when we didn't have Google and also. So that kind of got my interest to, say, commercial shipping, and that kind of got my interest to contracts, to charter parties, and which eventually led me to pursue chartering on a more kind of serious way.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would not agree with you that you were not very academic. I think you were one of those people that used to be very, very serious about your academic side of your career as well, in as much as I've known you. But also, one thing I remember is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that you always had this thing that you had to do your time at sea and then do something else after that. Am I right there? Or you had an ambition in some way? Or
in a way you are correct. Fortunately or unfortunately, I never sailed on a ship younger than me. So, which meant, which meant was I was really sailing on kind of, ships which were very, very demanding. Also, after a certain point in time, I was getting this feeling that, I'm kind of reaching a little bit of a stagnation.
Okay.
I would want to do kind of something new. Believe it or not, I mean, when I used to go to my office, before joining the ship, when we would go for briefing and debriefing section, that time, I would see the chartering guys were the only guys who were allowed to smoke in their cabins. Okay. Everybody else, had to kind of go down. Okay. I'm not a smoker, but I kind of found this privilege to be, it's a nice privilege to have. Yeah, I mean, right. If I were to smoke, it would be great if I could smoke in my room. I mean, I'm sure the chartering guys must have given some story that we have to give a counter in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so we can't afford to go down.
Right.
So that kind of got, So
those are the counters you give now. Can give now.
I don't know, but that privilege was a good privilege to have.
Right.
So that kind of got me going a bit. When I was sailing as a mate, I kind of was thinking, how else do I equip myself? So I kind of wanted to write these exams, the MICS exams. I had planned it in such a way that I would get a sign off at least 2 months before the exams, and I would kind of have enough time to study for them. As usual, I got sign off very late, just 15 days before.
As it always happens.
Yeah. I was not sure whether I would give it in the first place or not, but then I kind of pushed myself. I had some great friends who kind of helped me right there. And I think that's where kind of a little bit of the journey started. I don't know who was the examiner, but he found my paper very interesting and he gave me the highest in dry bulk chartering that year. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's just to come back to my point. You can't tell a mariner who has been at sea for 25 years that you are not academic and then you just gave a MICS exam.
But then the
first really not.
But then the first question of dry bulk chartering was draw a Cape size bulk carrier, right? Okay. Which probably would have been very tough for a shore person. But I had already sailed 4-5 contracts as a chief officer on Cape size bulk carriers.
Okay.
So I drew not one but 7. For 7 pages, I drew various versions.
I see.
Like a transverse section.
This was the only question in
No. So there were 5 questions. One was my time. One was draw Cape size bulk carrier. One was, this was a time when China was going through
This is
Olympic,
2008?
2006-7.
2007, okay.
China was going through their, the World Cup preparation, the Olympics preparation,
yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
So they were every iron ore and coal was kind of being, exported to China. So one of the question was, how do you know this trade? Say something about this trade. Obviously, I had been sailing for the last 1.5 years, doing only Brazil, China, South Africa, China, India, China. So obviously, this came very automatic to me. There were some other questions, kind of bill of lading. So it was it came quite naturally.
It came naturally to you. So you're saying, okay, just to back up the intro, the how it all started. You started your career in 1997 when we were together. We both started together in 97, and then 2007 and 8, you're now already transitioning to the next to the chartering area. So within this time, I know you really cleared your exams really quick, and then by this time you were already a chief officer, or you were sailing as a chief officer.
Yeah, I think we somewhere around 2005-6. I mean, we had cleared our mates and masters, and on the first ship, I mean, because my company didn't have very many people, so we got our promotions pretty fast. So I think I had become a chief officer by then. I had written my MICS exams. I had kind of expressed a desire to my shore bosses that I want to move ashore. Some well-wishers of mine kind of advised me that just sailing experience, a master's ticket, and MICS won't kick it.
Okay.
You'll have to kind of equip yourself a little bit more. Also, as seafarers, we tend to get very bogged down with micro stuff. We put in a lot of effort, energy into, say, loading 100 tons more, or how to strip out that last 20 tons,
right,
from your ballast tank. And somewhere by doing that, which is great, but somewhere by doing that, we kind of miss the bigger picture.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And I would see that when I would say meet a banker friend of mine, or meet a kind of a sales friend of mine, I would just not kind of comprehend what is it that they were talking about. I mean, they would talk about stuff like depreciation. The asset is depreciated, and yeah, we've studied a little bit on school, but the last 10 years of sailing had kind of taken all that away.
Right.
So my shore bosses had advised me that I would need to kind of study management in a little bit more formal way.
Okay.
So I did write my GMAT exams. I chose a college called SP Jain, which had a 1-year MBA, which was 6 months in Singapore, 6 months in Dubai.
Right.
Kind of the two shipping hubs in that point in time.
Was it strategically placed in Singapore and Dubai because they were shipping hubs, or because it's just the institute had that kind of...
For the institute, it was Singapore and Dubai because they were like the most kind of happening places from a corporate perspective for Asia.
Okay.
For me, it kind of really looked good because, these were two shipping hubs.
Absolutely. And
subsequently in my life, I did work in Singapore for 6 years, and now I'm in Dubai for the last 5 years. So it kind of makes sense that decision what I took was okay, because it was, kind of
right,
the cities which I had exposure to when I kind of, did my MBA.
Okay.
Post my MBA, I kind of came ashore. My first job was with a shipbroking company. So that was kind of my entry into the world of chartering, broking,
right,
trading.
So I think for anybody who's listening in and who's really early on in their career, because I doubt any other friend, I don't know anybody else who has transitioned to the commercial side so early as you have. Most of them have transitioned to the commercial side after they have become masters, and they've sailed for some time, and then they have signed off. And then, so for anybody who's really interested in this, what you're saying is the way to do it is the MICS, as you mentioned. I mean, that's the one exam, and then you have to sort of go through an MBA, but that MBA is optional.
So actually, I don't think shipping, or let's say seafaring knowledge or seafaring experience is kind of a prerequisite for chartering and commercial kind of a role.
Okay.
In fact, in my present organization, we are about 14-15 chartering managers, and none of them have any kind of seafaring experience.
Wow. Okay, you're the only one.
Yeah, I'm kind of the
and
only
even
one.
If you compare with other organizations, because you know them, I'm sure.
Typically,
at your level, almost nobody is a seafarer.
Typically, like let's say the operations department or the quality department or kind of the technical department would have a lot more seafarers, or seafaring is kind of a prerequisite.
Right.
But for commercial, it kind of is not a kind of a prerequisite. It kind of comes with its pros and cons both. But yeah, that's
you being a seafarer, how does it help or hinder your journey? I mean, would you say it's a hindrance, or would you say it's a help?
I wish there was one answer. I would say it's both. It does kind of does work as an added advantage sometimes. I mean, let's say if we are doing a business which is very tricky, like we are rating a business which there is some tidal loading involved, or there are certain type of vessel, port has a very funny requirement.
Okay.
There, my seafaring experience obviously kind of helps me run the calculations better, do the evaluations better,
Okay.
have overall understanding of the business better. But having said that, there are certain cases where, chartering is also kind of very hardcore sales,
Yeah.
and kind of hardcore kind of, selling a product. And sometimes having too much technical knowledge also is not very good to sell a product, right?
So you're saying that you cannot be objective in your decision. You're thinking too much about the
Exactly. I mean, you sometimes get too bogged down with the technicalities of it that you don't want to venture into the business. Whereas a person who might not be so technically sound will probably kind of go in, venture into the business, conclude the sale, and then eventually operations will kind of handle it.
But isn't that like comfort out of ignorance? Would you say that? I mean, somebody doesn't know what the challenges are. That's why they are taking more risks. Is that what you're trying to say? I mean, is it a good thing, or is it your knowledge about being a seafarer somehow puts you in a spot that,
I mean, let's say there,
because I don't think you're any less successful than anybody else in your time. So I would not say that has hindered your journey as in terms of your numbers, in terms of your targets, or in terms of what you want to achieve. So what I'm trying to get to is that how is that a hindrance in your you understanding the?
So in terms of let's say once I had this I had this example where I was kind of the broker in the middle, right? And my charterer and my ship owner had both agreed to kind of releasing a second set of BL with the first set of BL still in circulation, right?
Okay.
Now, in kind of a commercials, it's not 100% legal. But then the parties who are kind of have the maximum exposure to it, if they too have kind of agreed to it, say, me being a person in the middle, should have kind of been okay with the whole concept, because you're kind of the broker in the middle, and the head owner and the charterer, for whatever reason, they have to agreed to it. Right. But somehow, your knowledge of the subject makes you a little bit like, no, this is not going to happen.
And when you did
I won't let this happen.
So when you did that, and this is a very important, this is a very interesting thing that you just said. So when you put your foot down that, no, I know what is going on, and this is how, it's because I know the situation on board and how it is, were you in any way ridiculed for it, or sort of anybody said that was a wrong decision or something like that?
I wouldn't say ridiculed for it, because we did find a solution at the end,
right,
which was 100% legit, and that also happened because of the experience I got in having been a seafarer. But there was a time when I felt that the other brokers around the desk were like, hey, the two principals have agreed, why are you letting go of a business? Or there are certain trades which kind of have some trade practices, which,
gray areas.
Yeah, kind of, and people who have the exposure, if they are kind of okay with it.
What's your problem?
Exactly.
Got it.
But anyways, this is a very, very one-off example. But I sometimes also do see that sometimes, as seafarers, we tend to kind of over calculate,
Okay.
That, this time of the year, the weather is too bad. You kind of tend to buffer your calculations too much.
Okay.
So I wish, sometimes we kind of be more commercial in our decision making. So yeah, as I said, it has its pros and cons.
Understood.
But yeah, you just kind of learn to live with it and
totally
kind of, go on.
Right. Good. So take me a little bit into that journey. I mean, what you're doing is very different from the concepts that I have understood in my journey. I do not have much idea about the commercial side at all. So take me through a little bit into what you do and how you take your decisions, or a little bit details into that. Yeah.
So basically, if I have to just kind of see my job scope in one line. Basically, my job is to kind of ensure that I have enough cargo for the ships I have, and I have enough ships for the cargoes that I've booked.
Okay.
So we are kind of operators in the middle. I mean, we have a pool where we have a lot of ships which we are commercially managing for other people, and we have a cargo book, right? So I have a fair bit of cargoes that are booked on the spot, forward,
And you have to match the two.
and we ensure kind of that we have enough ships to load
Ships for the cargo
to
and
load
cargo
this
for the
cargo
ships.
and take this from point A to point B. That's kind of the basic job I do.
Right.
I am more concentrated on the Indian Ocean region, so I'm mostly doing trades like from South Africa, Middle East, India. This is kind of predominantly my knowledge area.
And dry bulk, is it?
Yeah, and my company is a dry bulk company. So
Okay.
our the most cargoes that we load are coal, iron ore, manganese, sulfur,
Okay.
all kind of in bulk. So how it goes, I mean, if I have to tell you kind of how I work, or what would a day
Yeah.
be?
Yeah. What would
be
be
like?
a typical day in your
Yeah.
life be like? Yeah.
I would kind of come to office. Kind of an initial part of the day would kind of go into ensuring that the businesses that are happening presently, so that the ships that are presently in water, we would ensure that all of them are operationally going okay.
Right.
Because I mean, though operations is not kind of say a part of the commercial man's job, but again,
It's all internal.
Exactly. I mean, if there is an operational issues, you would have to get into it. So a little bit of it would be kind of to ensure that operationally everything is going okay.
Right.
If there is something that needs your attention, you kind of attend to it. Sometimes, you would need to reach out to a kind of a commercial person or somebody higher up
Right.
in the chain to kind of ensure to get a problem solved. So that would be a part of it. Another part of it would be I would talk with other regions, right? So I'm in Indian Ocean.
Okay.
I just can't have knowledge of how Indian Ocean is working out.
Okay.
I would also need to have a knowledge of how Pacific is doing, of how Atlantic is behaving. So there would be some cross-office interactions where I would talk to my colleagues, try and find out how is it that they are seeing the market. Are they kind of are they seeing this is going to go up, this is going to go down?
Right.
So accordingly, then you get a view of it.
Right.
A good part of my day also, I kind of read a lot of reports and find out kind of what geopolitically, what are the happenings, how would that kind of affect my business.
Right.
Obviously, I do have to speak to a lot of cargo, to a lot of commodity traders, to a lot of brokers, to kind of have let's say, a vision in my mind as to this is where we are we going up or are we going down? And then once we have made up our mind how it's looking, we would have to then accordingly kind of understand how do we position ourselves?
Okay.
Do we go long? Do we go short? Do we kind of, book more cargoes? Do we book more ships? And take it on from there.
Okay, you've got to back up a little bit, because when you use the words like when we go long, when we go short and things like that, these are pretty much Greek to me. So if you can break it down a little bit,
Sure.
To how...
Absolutely.
How is it?
So going long would mean, let's say it's the 1st of January, right?
Okay.
And I have taken a ship for, say, 10 to 13 months, okay?
Right.
So that means I have about 10 months, so about 30 days a month into
No,
days.
I mean, before even that, I want to understand that are you the sole decision maker on which cargo is going to be assigned to which ship, or there are other factors, other people? How does that process work? And before we go into the details of exactly the work, but like if I'm coming from a very layman's point of view, like I'm a ship owner. I've given my ship for commercially being managed by somebody like your company, and I trust your decisions, obviously. And then there's another cargo owner sitting in Brazil, sitting in Australia, that wants a cargo to be transported. Just from a very basic and layman's point of view, how does this process get initiated, and how does it get into fruition eventually?
Okay. So, again, as chartering personnel, we all have certain mandates, like, so we have kind of a hierarchical system where we have certain kind of mandates that we sit with.
Okay.
So I have a certain mandate that I can take exposure for so much time,
Okay.
or or so much value. So as long as we are within the mandates, then the decision is kind of with the book owner as to where how he wants to position. Obviously, it's not just a decision that I take. I have a team. We have a research department.
Okay.
I can always bounce off some ideas with my bosses. So it's kind of we do kind of do a lot of like you said, like, we have a ship that is, say, discharging in west coast of India, and the discharging is going to complete. Now, what do we do with this vessel?
Right.
After she has completed discharging, do we load in west coast of India and go towards China?
Right.
Or do we ballast her to east coast of South America? Or do we ballast her to kind of South Africa? Or do we kind of take a cargo and go towards Atlantic side?
Right.
So that's a decision that I kind of take on a day-to-day basis. Again, it's not my decision alone. The team would kind of brainstorm. We also have research department who helps us. We also have some compliance requirements, as in we can't fix with everybody. There are only some businesses that we can do, some we cannot. So it's kind of a culmination of, say, all of it, where we then decide, okay, the best thing to do with this vessel is to kind of ballast to east coast of South America.
Okay.
So obviously, I mean, what season is it? Is it the grain season? What's the seasonality? What kind of, the reports that we try and find out what are the South Africa manganese or chrome prices? Are they kind of shooting up?
Okay.
Is the season there, or is it kind of the grain season? Or should we kind of, sometimes we have some requirements in terms of this ship needs to go to a dry dock. So then we accordingly position the ship. So it's kind of not just one variable for the decision making. It's kind of multiple things that you kind of need to tick out and ensure that it's kind of looking at it.
Okay.
And yes, as a kind of a person who's managing the book, I would have to ensure that, there are enough kind of, not all your ships are doing the same business, right? So there would be some kind of de-risking the business. There would be some ships kind of all over they would be kind of doing various businesses. We also have a research which tells us that depending on the seasonality, which area, what percentage of our ships should be in what area. So that's kind of a decision-making team rather than just one person doing it.
And you have a pool of, let's say, how many ships? If you can give me a number.
Yeah, so right now we have a pool of about 35 ships, but it's just not that pool that we are managing. As I said, we, at the starting of, we do book cargoes, right? If I only had to fix cargoes for my ships, then it's just that much work. The whole idea is to kind of increase value for the organization. So, keeping that as a base, we would kind of book more cargoes or take more ships in and kind of create more business for the organization.
So, in this bargain, and this may be a very stupid question, just from a layman's point of view, that in this bargain, obviously the ship owner wants to maximize his profit on his freight on his charter rates, and he wants the maximum money per day that he can get. And the cargo owner wants to pay the least amount of money for getting the cargo from point A to point B. Your job, as I understand, is on the ship owner's side to maximize his freight, is it? Or it's also on in some ways in the cargo owner's side too. So how do you balance this? Because obviously there's a fight going on, right?
Yeah. So that's where like we operators, we are kind of in the middle. We kind of do both. So we are taking ships from ship owners, running it for them.
Okay.
And we are giving a freight to a cargo owner. And obviously that freight cannot be high. The freight has to be kind of competitive.
Right.
So, the entire day my main job is to kind of ensure that this spread that we have, it's never that the cargo owner wants $10 and the ship is going to give you 10, the freight is going to be $10. There's going to be the difference there.
Sure.
So the most thing that we are doing is to ensure that how we bridge the gap. Right?
Okay.
But having said that, for us, when we have a vessel, it's not always that the present money what the vessel is earning, you need to go for that, right? It depends, where are you, how are you reading the market, right?
If you're expecting that.
Exactly. If you think
fall.
Atlantic is going to move up after a month or so, then why don't we reposition the vessel to Atlantic?
Right.
Okay. So as I said, that's kind of what we are constantly trying to figure out. How is the market going to be?
Okay.
And where should I keep repositioning my vessels to get maximum return on them?
I see.
And at the same time, I have to kind of, service my cargo customers.
Yeah.
So I would have to kind of keep giving competitive rates to them to ensure that, there is a kind of a business optimization that we reach.
But also there is, as I understand, there's an indexation called like Baltic Index, right? That is the indexation. So we have some kind of a benchmarking against the standard rates and freights that is going on. Just to break it down for somebody who doesn't even know, how does the Baltic Index work? How does it affect your job? And if you can go a little bit into details of it, and as much details as you want.
Perfect. So basically, Baltic Exchange, what they do is, in dry bulk, we have categorized the segment of vessels as Cape sizes. So we have a Cape index, then Panamaxes. So we have a Panamax index, then Supramaxes. So we have a Supramax index and a Handy index, right?
Okay.
So how each of these indexes work, just to give you an example. So let's take the Panamax index, how it works. Now, like, I don't know if you do shares or not, but like you have Sensex, right? So you have 50 shares that you track, and these 50 shares, whether they are going up or down, that kind of, they amalgamate that and they kind of say, okay, is the market, exactly, if the market is moving up or moving down. So what we do on the Panamax is, we have taken 5 routes, okay? So the first route is what we call as P1, which is a transatlantic route.
Okay.
That has about 20% weightage to the index.
Okay.
Then we have a front haul. So that's a route P2, which is, say, Atlantic into Pacific, which is like kind of the most paying business.
Okay. So that through the Panama Canal and
from Atlantic into, if not only Pacific, it will also be in the Indian Ocean. A front haul, could be through Red Sea, could be through Suez, could be through Cape, depending on what is the load port and what is the discharge port.
Yeah.
So that P2A, that's the second route, that has 10% weightage to it. We have a P3A, which is like the Pacific round business. So something you're loading in Australia and kind of within your vessel is being within the Pacific region. Okay. So that has another 20% weightage to it. And then we have the backhaul route. So from a ship which is going from Pacific into Atlantic. So that's the backhaul route. That's the least paying route, which has another 10% weightage to it. And the fifth route is like a East Coast South America route, where the vessel is open from Singapore, it goes to East Coast South America and back to Pacific. That has 30% weightage. Okay. So
and that's also one of the high paying ones.
Yes, that's kind of one of the high paying ones. So what happens is Baltic have their kind of empaneled brokers. Every day the brokers would kind of report what is the level that is happening on each of these routes. Okay. We have a Panamax, a standard kind of a Baltic ship, 82,000 14.5 meter draft,
very standard.
Yes.
At sort of the middle of the spectrum kind of a.
Correct. So you kind of adjust it, and all the kind of empaneled brokers are reporting this route, and then this route is, and then all these routes weightedly we get the Panamax index. So it comes out every day, every working day as a number. So like 14,000, 15,000, whatever would be the number that we can calculate.
So is it only for the bulk cargo? Does it also happen, something similar also happens for the oil or the containers,
yes.
Other businesses?
There are similar routes. Pre-decided routes for oil, for containers. We kind of work on routes, Oil, I understand they kind of work on something called as a world scale, where they have a predetermined route, predetermined fare, and then you trade on world scale. So you just say, okay, world scale 100 is where, your ship owner's costs are kind of just about there. So if you're fixing at world scale 150, 200, then you're earning more. If you're fixing below than that, then obviously you're fixing it at a
But as I
discount.
understood about the calculations that you just mentioned, is that the higher paying routes have more weightage. Like you were saying that the least paying route has only a 10% weightage.
No,
So-
the Pacific, the Atlantic route and the Pacific route,
Yeah.
they are of same weightage.
Hmm.
Typically, Atlantic rounds are much more paying than Pacific rounds, but they have equal weightage.
Acha. Okay.
The front haul, which is the most paying business, and the back haul, which is the least paying business, they have equal weightage.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's evens out there.
Right? And then you have the grain business, which is kind of what bulk of the Panamaxes are doing, which has a 30%.
So it's a
weightage.
perfectly averaged out calculation in every
And
way.
it just doesn't stop there. Like Baltic keeps reviewing the routes from time to time. I
Right.
mean, earlier we just had 4 routes. We just had a Atlantic round, Pacific round, a back haul and a front haul, all 25% weightage.
Okay.
But now they have introduced a grain East Coast South America route to kind of make it more wholesome. They also have 3 more routes which they are kind of working on,
Okay.
where they are reporting what levels the fixtures are being done, what money is being earned, but they have not kind of put it into the index per se.
Okay.
So this how is what, let's say, you can say this is the share price. I mean, if today, if today I have to say, okay, I have a ship which is open in Singapore and I need to go to East Coast South America and come back to China, what should I get? Then P6 route is kind of your, say, benchmark that you kind of need to be.
So, yeah.
So then similarly, the Baltic index that we have, they take about 40% weightage from the Capesizes, 30% Supras and 30% of Panamaxes. And Baltic index is then calculated
That's the
on an
overall.
overall kind of a scale.
Okay.
So to know which way you are kind of, headed.
Right.
So you get these fixtures, you get these rates, and then you understand, okay, this is what the market presently is.
So let's say you understand that a present market is at this level, and you have, let's say, a choice of 4 ships for a certain cargo. And one of the ship owner is really adamant on getting a much higher price, higher than the index and higher than others. Can he claim that on some basis? Let's say he's got 1, 2, 3 points checked. He's got a fantastic score in maybe right ship inspections or something like that. Does it affect, or is it just the same? I mean, you're going to pay the same to everybody anyways. It is, how does that?
If I could just break down your question in terms of, does a better quality ship earn more? The simple answer would be yes, it would kind of earn more.
Right.
With every passing day, I mean, the big commodity traders, right? The Vales and the Rio Tintos, they are getting more and more conscientious of what kind of ships they fix.
Okay.
So they have a certain requirement in terms of the age of the vessel, the right ship score of the vessel, the GHG emission of the vessel, in terms of how its history has been with PSC. If you don't meet a certain bar, then sorry, you're not, I mean, the ship is not eligible to be fixed.
Yeah.
Then, if your vessel performs better, obviously you kind of earn more, right? Because, I mean, there's a freight that you do, and if you're obviously the better you kind of perform, the better your earning would be. That's to answer the first part of your question. Your second part of the question is that if a ship owner wants to go for more money, should he do that, or how it works is, again, it depends on what kind of, what is your present requirement at that time. Now, if let's say I'm just a pure ship owner, right? I've not given my ship to the pool. I'm just a pure ship owner. I have 10 ships which I'm running.
Right.
Then what do I do? Again, our decision on what business to take would be how we see the market future. I mean, if let's say we have 4 ships opening at the same time, it should theoretically do 4 different types of businesses. That's de-risking your business
Okay.
All, right?
Okay.
Also, if you want to maximize your earning, then all the 4 ships should be doing the same business,
Same
which
business,
is,
which
which
you
is the
feel is the
most paying kind of a business.
Correct.
But then, if it's the most paying, then obviously it's understood that when she will discharge, she's going to open in the position which is going to be the least paying, right? That's why you're getting the most kind of premium right now.
Okay.
So, we just can't look at it on one fixture. We would have to take a overall perspective,
Right.
as to how is my fleet. I mean, what percentage of my ships should be trading in Atlantic, what percentage should be trading in Pacific,
Yeah.
what percentages should be doing backhaul, what percentages should be doing front haul. And that's where, as chartering people, we are constantly talking with our research, we are constantly talking with the commodity guys, with the brokers, to have a overall perspective of the market,
Yeah.
and to ensure that we kind of optimize or give the maximum earning to all the ships.
Got it. Actually, this is a very interesting segue to something that we also do, because and also a nice link to how even a seafarer can impact the commercial viability of a ship. Because what you said in the first part of this answer is that a better ship would obviously earn more, which makes sense in every way. It is sort of a no-brainer. But what we often sometimes overlook is that a ship performing better is basically, or a fleet performing better in general, is sort of a collection of individuals, collection of seafarers performing in their own way, which sort of shows up in audits, shows up in right ship inspections, shows up in post-trade inspections, and so on and so forth. And that, what you're saying is, has a bigger impact than just to have a good score. I mean, it obviously transitions to the better commercial viability of the ship, and that's where it...
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the better your vessel is, obviously the more it will earn. So it's in everybody's interest to keep it better managed.
That's Darwin's theory, basically survival of the fittest. I mean,
correct. But I kind of wanted to speak. I wanted to. You said something. As seafarers, how is it that we can optimize? And again, why I kind of always feel that why you should read the charter parties is that sometimes we are channelizing our energies into something which is kind of not, say, very relevant.
Yes.
I mean, to kind of give you an example, sometimes, as a seafarer, you need to kind of have a knowledge of how the economics of it kind of works, right? We've had cases where, to load 100 tons more, we have spent so much more time. I mean, I wish that as seafarers, we should know that what is the freight of the vessel. I mean, if let's say the freight is only $4, and if I'm wasting a full day to load that extra 100 tons, is it kind of worth it?
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have a full a kind of sense of numbers.
Overall picture.
We suddenly get these calls at night and we say, we want to load that extra, what should we do? I mean, we think we are going to miss the tide. It should be a very quick math, right? It should be like, okay, if I'm going to load that extra, I'm going to earn X. But if I have to wait for the next tide, and if my cost for that is 2x or 10x, then no, sorry, loading this extra X is not going to help us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, as a seafarer, the job is always there to kind of give a seaworthy shape, ensure the loading gets properly done. But also, if you could have a sense of the overall economics or the overall economics of the...
But see, this is the challenge. I've been a seafarer for 25 years. As a seafarer, you obviously do not get the perspectives which we have. Now, let's say after hearing this from you through our channels or through this podcast, a seafarer gets to know the economics, and then let's say he puts his foot down. I do not want to waste this time, because it is very often it comes down to the company culture as well. I mean, they don't get to talk directly to the charterers all the time. Like somebody in your place would probably not be talking directly to a seafarer. You will probably go through a management company. They've got their own benchmarkings and other things. Let's say a ship and I'm from the tanker business, so I can say their ship has never got it's always got a nil ROB for the last 10 voyages. Now, a chief officer comes and for 2 consecutive voyages, he's got ROB. It's not just a matter of how the charterer is losing, it's the chief officer's individual credibility at stake, and then he has got to answer to other people, oh, this chief officer is a new promotion. I think he's not that effective. He's getting ROB every contract. It's sort of looking not very good in his CV. I mean, in the way that he's performing. I'm saying it in a lot of ways, it's even if somebody understands the bigger picture, how do you suggest can we make the entire industry conscious about this so that the individual seafarer is not blamed or not, even if he understands it, he sometimes cannot take a decision which is to favor, in fact, probably he's losing more money for you than he could have earned for you. So how do we prevent that on a larger scale?
That in fact goes to my, I remember when initially we used to get the charter parties, I don't know if when we used to initially get the charter parties on board, they would always kind of blank out, the freight that the vessel is earning or the hire that kind of vessel is earning. I kind of found that, not a good practice, because how do you then get a sense of the overall math if you don't know how, what is it that is kind of how much is at stake? With time, I see this, and obviously in future with more transparency, this will come in. I think it is getting more and more. We are understanding the need to kind of say share. We are kind of understanding the need to kind of have everybody on board, and at least we always. And I say that when I say we, I hope I speak for all, say the modern day kind of commercial men and women, that we try to involve all stakeholders into the picture, because the moment you have some kind of accountability to the project, the more you will put your heart, whole and soul to it. We sometimes get these calls from frantic masters saying, I remember it was quite late at night, and probably my ops had not taken the call, and this master was kind of calling me quite frantically saying, he's just kind of sailing out and the weather is kind of very bad and he needs an extra tug, and his company has told him that, if you need the extra tug, then please ensure that the charter pays for it.
There you go. See,
and but my point is, if you need an extra tug,
just
if
go
you
get
are
an
the
extra
master
tug,
and you think an extra tug is required, just take it.
Yeah.
Right? It's very clearly said that you have overriding authority for safety. So you should be able to kind of take the extra tug and leave the commerciality of it, to the person up and down the chain. Also, there are cases when, as I said, we have seen, we are sometimes, spending too much of energy into kind of something not so very significant. You would have to kind of sometimes look at the whole picture. To have that zero ROB, what is the resource that you're spending
What's
to have
the
the zero
trade-off?
ROB? Right? What is it at stake?
Yeah.
I understand the last chief officer had 0, so you should also have 0, if not negative. But what is the resource that you're spending for it? So, having the bigger picture, I think, will and should always help. And I at least promote a lot of kind of transparent dealings. I do something called as a parceling business, where we load like multiple smaller parcels from South Africa to China. So instead of say one parcel of 80,000, we have 10 parcels. We have 10 parcels of 8,000, or we have 20 parcels of 4,000, right?
Okay.
Where we have to really sit down with the master, and we have to kind of do these planning. And these are quite intricate, complex plannings, right? And we have to let go some cargo to load some more. If the master doesn't have that knowledge that this parcel is paying me more, this parcel is paying me less, how would he then be able to do these calculations?
Absolutely.
So it's in everybody's prerogative. It's in everybody's interest that we be more transparent,
Yeah.
We get all stakeholders into the table, and then we will have a much more fruitful kind of outcome.
Yeah, and I believe there is something that just came up, and I'm just thinking out loud that the perspective which you're seeing today, I'm sure very few people. I mean, you're one of those people who are sort of deciding at a much global, very global level, at taking decisions on a global level. So, what came out of this last conversation is so. What you're saying is that the time that you're spending has an opportunity cost. It can be translated into a monetary value. When it comes to a tangible monetary value, that okay, let's say, as you said, that if I'm paying $100 per ton, loading 400 tons is another, or 100 ton is another $400 for me. It doesn't make any sense for me to spend the whole day behind it, because that has a much bigger value. So this is simple maths. I mean, this is clear maths. So there is no ambiguity. Nobody else in another part of the world can say, no, that guy Shurit Bose is wrong and I'm right, because this is maths. This is clear cut maths. So I believe one of the things that would really help this industry, and this is something we can also take to the industry, is that if responsible owners had a very clear discussion with their masters, because I've been a master and sailed for some of the biggest companies in the world, I have never had this kind of a discussion with anybody in terms of this mathematics. Because if I understand that, I would definitely not spend 8 hours to bring out that few cubics of ROB that is remaining in my tanks just by stripping again and again and again. I would probably not do that. Obviously, there is another shortcut in the tanker industry that you show ROB as non-pumpable, and then that doesn't get counted. But then, if it is pumpable, what then? So these factors, especially in crude oil trade, it doesn't. So what I'm saying is, as a master, probably this is one information I feel I did not have as a professional, and not in a structured way. I mean, I could have probably found out if I went out of my way to find it out, and I was really interested in numbers. And what you're saying is the masters should themselves explore. Probably there are ways to explore, but I'm saying, why not have this as a structured guidance to the master, that this is on numbers. Understand the numbers and you will take better decisions.
There are a couple of things to it. It also kind of, yes, it is a number. There also are kind of various parties involved in the chain, right? So you have a final, you have a shipper who's shipping the cargo, you have a voyage charterer, you have an operator or a time charter in the middle. There's probably a period charter in the middle. The technical manager, he's reporting to the head owner. That head owner has no idea who the voyage charterer is or who the shipper is. He just knows that his ship is for the next 10 years booked to a company X. That person has probably given the ship to company Y for 2 years. That Y has given to company, W for a spot charter. So it's kind of a chain. Sometimes it kind of is quite, it kind of get quite complex.
Okay.
So you would then have to have a very clear understanding of the business, right?
Okay.
Right. So, and then as seafarers, you would then have to see that how best to kind of be of help, to everybody in the chain. There are many cases where, the voyage charterer wants you to do something, the time charterer wants you to do something, and the head owner wants you to do something completely different.
Okay.
I
Sure.
Probably we could think of some example. It's happened many times where the shipper is kind of trying to increase the cargo quantity. The voyage charterer, the time charterer in the middle is saying, no, I don't want to load that extra quantity because it's not worth the time. And your head owner is like, oh, it just doesn't help, just take instruction from X. It's not safe to load that much. So there are cases when there are different people involved in the chain who have then different kind of interests, and who then in turn can give you different requests or different instructions.
Yeah, pretty much.
So then you would have to understand who do you owe the kind of allegiance to.
Well, I think this is not a tough decision really, because if somebody is giving you a decision that you need to do this, usually get it verified from all the other stakeholders, especially your company, and then you take a decision as a
Right.
master. What I'm saying is masters taking their own decisions out of ignorance
Yes.
can be avoided.
That I completely, I mean, I have always said that, let's take a little bit extra step. I mean, whenever we have sent port captains or, loading masters, we have always said that if it's a very complex kind of a loading, or, if there are many variables involved, please do sit down with the staff on board and please ensure that, the information is kind of laid down and, people
Right.
know what's at stake so that overall you have a better result.
So then, I mean, now that I have a fairly good understanding, I would say, what you have learned in 15 years. I'm trying to learn in 15 minutes, but then, okay, we have a pretty good understanding of what you're saying. So now if you can go a little deeper into how these markets work, and being conscious about the fact that your expertise is in bulk carrier, but having said that, if you have any tangents to talk about other markets as well, like which is analogous in some ways or the other, yeah, feel free to hear.
So I think every market, I mean, economics 101 follows on a very simple principle of supply and demand, right?
Sure.
I mean, if you have more demand, less supply, obviously the market would kind of move up.
Yeah.
And if you have less demand and more supply, obviously the market would kind of
Move down.
So the entire world kind of follows this principle.
Of course.
And shipping industry as so is also kind of not different, and it kind of follows that kind of same route. What makes shipping, let's say, a little different from some of the other industries is, the volatility in shipping is very high. Okay. Now, for that, if a ship is, say a East Coast South America round, if it's 15,000 today, we have seen swings of up to $4,000, $5,000 in a day, right?
Wow.
So, there, as kind of commercial people, it's very important for us to
Anticipate.
I wish we could always anticipate, then it would have made us super rich. But yes, we should have kind of a sense of understanding where it's heading,
Okay.
why it's heading,
Yeah.
what lies in the future thereafter. And now that it's taking a certain direction, what is it that we do? How is it that we kind of rectify ourselves, or how do we position ourselves to kind of, see the market dynamics of it. So that's kind of one major kind of part of what.
So what you're saying is, if the cost of carrying 100 tons of cargo from point A to point B was $10,000, the jump could be as much as $4,000-$5,000, like almost 30-40%, 50% jump on either sides, and that's the volatility of the market that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Am I
So
getting
kind
that
of,
right?
I have say on the 1st of January, I agreed to carry 100,000 tons of coal from Indonesia into India, and we agreed that it's $7 because that was the fair
Per
freight. Yeah, $7 per ton. That was the fair freight of the transit that time. And after 10 days, is $7 still the fair freight? Has the market moved up or has it moved down?
Right.
If it has moved up, what has been the difference? Now, many a times,
And you're comparing this to the index, to the Baltic index or to the Panama
Not-
index.
not all routes have an index, right?
Right.
So there are some routes where we kind of correlate to the index, where we have we have a huge amount of data with us,
Sure.
whereby we have kind of correlated, some non-indexed routes, but also how we need to kind of proceed in that particular case in terms of, let's say you are a cargo owner and at the starting of the year you have to ship, say, 1 million tons, and you want to do X amount every month, and you
Okay.
come to me and you say, okay, I need a fixed freight. I give you a fixed rate, right? So which basically means if the market moves from there onwards, if the market moves up or it moves down,
It doesn't
I
affect
would still have to keep performing to you at that rate.
at that rate.
Then with that exposure on my books, how do I then perform the kind of the fixtures? How do I kind of play with this volatility to kind of keep serving you and at the same time kind of make money at my side?
Sure. And if you make a wrong decision there, and suddenly, let's say you have had a freight which is at a relatively, at that time it seemed normal to you, but then the market suddenly moved up, then you will end up losing a lot of money for the ship owner, and and they'll probably
Until and unless you've done a wrong calculation, there is no wrong decision. Whatever decision you take, it can be suitably hedged. So let's say today the three main costs of doing a transit from A to B. One is your hire, the per day hire that you're paying to the ship.
Yeah.
The second is the bunkers, the cost of the bunkers that it's going to consume.
Right.
The third is the port DA of the load port and the discharge port, and some very small ancillary costs.
Okay.
Out of which the port DA is fairly kind of stagnant. They change once every 2 years or once every 3 years, and even if they change, it's a 3%, 5% change, which normally won't affect your, the voice economics in a big way. So the main two factors here is the hire and the bunkers.
Okay.
So how we do this is, or most ship owners, how they would do it is, they won't kind of leave this exposure open in their books. They would kind of hedge their cost. Okay. So let's say when I kind of give you a freight, one is we can agree for a fixed freight where you see, okay, if the bunker goes up or bunker goes down, that's my baby. So I kind of take care of it.
Okay.
So what I would do is, there are many such hedge instruments available in the market where we can go to the market and we can say, okay, I want to buy January, February, March, April, and I can buy forward instruments to hedge this cost. Okay. So which basically means if subsequently the bunker has moved up, I would kind of lose on the physical, but I would make money on the paper. Okay. So let me just let me give you a better, or let's say an easier example.
Yeah, maybe a little easier example.
Okay. I'm going to consume, let's say, 100 tons of bunker for each month, right?
Okay.
I go to a bunker trader and I tell him that, I need 100 tons of bunker every month and I want a fixed price to it. What do we do? A bunker trader can say, okay, fine. I can give you, say, $600 every month. Right. So that's a fix. You fix it, you take that 600 in your calculation, you're completely hedged. Okay?
Okay.
Whatever goes up and down, the bunker supplier kind of sits with it.
Okay.
Not every time would a bunker supplier would want to do it, right? So in that case, what do? I go to the paper market and I say, okay, can I buy a swap for January for 100 tons, a swap for February for 100 tons?
What is a swap?
A swap is basically an instrument
where
we are buying for a forward month and a forward date.
Okay.
So the January swap, let's say we buy it for 580. Okay.
But then again, you're asking for a fixed price. Doesn't matter if the price goes up or down, you get it for 580.
Yeah, I buy the swap at 580. This swap is always moving. Okay.
Okay.
Now I buy the swap for 580. Okay. When January physically happens, okay, when January comes, and if the market has moved up, the value of the swap has also moved up correspondingly.
Okay.
So if let's say if you bought it at 580 and when January happened, the value has gone up to say 680, the value of this swap has gone up from 580 to 680.
So I have not spending anything.
Yeah, I have made $100 on the swap, but when I physically buy the bunkers, I'm going to lose kind of $100.
Got it.
Obviously, there is a little bit of costs for buying this swap, some kind of brokerage for that.
Those are small
and also then we play these to our advantage, right? We would then kind of see how to use these instruments to make money.
Got it.
But then this is how I would hedge myself.
Okay.
This is one of the various ways. There are many such instruments available to kind of hedge yourself. It can be you can buy a Singapore swap if that market is not liquid, as in you don't have much, you can buy them. You can buy crude against it, so that because crude has obviously a big correlation to the bunker market. So you can kind of hedge yourself with that.
Okay.
The idea is you should hedge it, not kind of keep your books.
So
open.
the idea that you're coming back to is that to reduce your risks.
Yeah.
And so the moment we talk about reduction of risks at any level, I'm guessing that it also comes with the cost of reducing your gains, right? If suddenly your market falls, you would have gained a lot more by keeping to that, which you're not getting now.
Absolutely. You're absolute. That's why I say you're so academically, you're so sound, because you understand this concept very well. The good part about hedging yourself is you will never make windfall losses. But you also are missing out on the windfall profits.
Yeah.
Okay. So now then here belongs that what as a company, how is it that you want to work? Sometimes when we have a very strong opinion or notion of the market, we do kind of, take a call. Let's say we have kind of, our research has kind of sat down, we have crunched a lot of data, and we clearly understand that in Q2, the market is going to move up. Then within our mandates, we can go long, as in we can take more ships,
right,
and position ourselves in such a way that when the market moves up,
right,
our ships start earning more money. Or if we have a clear position that the market is going to crash,
okay,
or the market is going to drastically go down, we can then consciously position ourselves to have a short position. As in we book more cargoes, but we don't take the ships against it, but knowing fully well that when the market is going to go down, that is the time we are going to earn kind of fix the ships,
right?
That way. So, always you would like to kind of, buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
But the whole point of it is, what is it that you believe in?
Yeah.
How is it that you execute? What is the mandate that you have within which you can kind of take a position?
Yeah.
And how much of it is that you want to hedge yourself?
Right.
And if you want to hedge yourself, what instrument are you going to use, which is going to be the best kind of, hedge against
tool against
entire kind of thing. That again is a part of my job, which I'm kind of thinking on a kind of a daily basis.
And this,
how is it that I do that?
And this is something that you're doing with an entire team of researchers that is actually crunching data and crunching numbers. So what I'm understanding is that, so even if you take a decision very confidently that the market is going to go up, so I'm going to take this decision. I'm not going to hedge at this point. So I know that the market will rise. So I'm taking a very conscious decision to gain more in this case. I'm guessing if this decision is purely based on numbers, then you have no advantage over any other company, right? Unless it is based on some intuition which you know, or you have a feeling about something which others probably don't have. Would you say this is a very number-based game which everybody knows that the market is going up, so we are not going to do this. Everybody's taking the same decision, because then who's gaining in this process? Is anybody gaining, or is even the gains are getting even?
No, so that's when, within our team, we have people with two different opinions, right?
Okay.
Most of our meetings go where within our team, we are kind of where one guy is a seller and one guy is a buyer, because I believe, the market is going to go up and the other person believes the market is going to go down. So it's not always so simple, right? In fact, if all of us were so correct, then all of us would have been billionaires by now. So the fact is we aren't, and shipping is constantly still going through its ups and downs, makes this so much more kind of, engaging, if I can say. So, yes, we have now it's not just a team of people. Now we have a lot of algorithms in it, we have a lot of machine learning in it, we have a lot of AI in it, we have a lot of quant models in it, which are helping us do this. But in spite of all of this, there are times when you can go wrong, or there are times when a black swan event like COVID comes in and it completely kind of messes up with what you thought it is going to be,
Yeah.
and what it eventually lands up with. But having said that, as a trader, if you ask me, would you want volatility or would you want flat? I would always want volatility.
Okay.
Because in a flat market, there is nothing I can do about it. I can't create value,
Can't create.
or I can't do anything.
Correct.
I mean, if the freight is going to be $10 from the first day of the year to the last day of the year,
there's nothing for
Exactly.
you to do anything. It's just, yeah.
I would anytime want to have volatility,
Okay.
because volatility gives me an opportunity to take a position and to then execute it correctly.
And your
We do get it
efficiency-
sometimes wrong, but we say as long as you get right 7 out of 10 times, you're
Yeah.
kind of
So
in a
that is the
good position.
differentiator. Like this is exactly what I was trying to come to, that your differentiator as a thorough professional is the fact that you have, over a period of, let's say, 15 years, you've got 8 out of 10 times the right decision, or 7 out of 10 times the right. I mean, whatever the number
I
is,
mean,
I'm saying
without
that is
trying
the
to
edge.
be humble or not humble about it, it actually is very complex. I mean, there are times when all of us believe that something is going to happen,
Something else
and the
happens.
market completely happens in the reverse way.
Right.
I mean, as I said, within our team, we have different views of the market.
Yeah.
We have some quant models which are going in a different direction. We are going in a different direction.
Right.
So, yes, as long as you get a certain proportion of your market calls right, and most importantly, if you're wrong, your ability should be to kind of stop loss yourself as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Because this is one problem that we traders always have. We thought the market is going to go up. It is going down, but we are not ready to
Accept it.
accept it, whatever be the reason, and we are not kind of changing our position. That is very dangerous. You should be able to kind of, cut the loss
Flexible.
and kind of move on, because that's what makes you a better kind of
Right.
a commercial person than kind of not. So one is the volatility thing, and the second thing is typically, I mean, not I don't know if I should be politically correct to say this, but I would still say it. The more the disruption, the better, or typically we've seen disruptions land up with hires, or
Okay.
it kind of makes the market much more firm and kind of gives us more room to play with.
When you say disruptions, you mean the black swan disruptions?
No,
Like
not only black
COVID
swan
and things like
disruptions,
that.
just usual disruptions. Could be a small strike, it could be a couple of cyclones,
Okay.
it could be bunkers not available at a port. Like right now, we are seeing two disruptions. We are seeing Panama Canal drying up, so not all vessels are able to call Panama Canal.
I
There's
see.
huge congestion. And second is we are having some rebel attacks at the Red Sea, Yemen, whereby ships are not going through Suez but going through Cape of Good Hope.
Okay.
Now, when such disruptions happen, typically it results in a stronger market. Because, some ships are stuck up, some ships are doing longer routes, so your turn mile has gone up. The supply of ships is much less in the market.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the hires would
The freight.
the freights or the hires would kind of move up. So,
So if you have a ship that is stuck in the Panama Canal, that's you're unlucky over there. But others are gaining out of this situation. That's what you're saying.
depends on what state I'm stuck up in. Let's say if I am doing a front haul, so let's say my ship was in Atlantic and we were supposed to come to the Pacific and it's enjoying a 30,000 hire and I'm stuck up and somebody's paying me for it, it's a great place to
Great.
be stuck up.
Okay.
But if I'm doing a back haul and if I'm stuck up, then it's definitely a loss for me. But yes, any such disruptions would kind of make the market stronger or make the market kind of firmer. If shipping is too efficient, like I don't know if you follow the market regularly or not, but 2021 and 2022, after 2 years after COVID, we had some great markets. I mean, we saw some of the very high markets. 2023, shipping became too efficient. There weren't any congestion in ports. The weather was fine. There was no cyclone, no strikes, nothing in any part of the world. It kind of made the system so efficient that the hires weren't moving on. So I should not say this, but I love volatility. I love volatility and disruption is good. That keeps our business more, that gives us the opportunity to kind of make some value out of it.
Okay, understood. No, I mean, I think I've got a fairly decent idea of volatility and market volatility and how it all works to some extent at least. How did COVID affect the industry or affect your area especially?
So, basically what we saw, I mean, initially when COVID initially hit us, most of the ports started kind of saying, they've started kind of doing lockdowns. And obviously a lot of force measures are declared. So typically if you're, again, it depends on what kind of a charter are you. If we had fixed a ship for a voyage charter, wherein we were just getting, say, X freight, a force majeure was declared and we weren't getting demurrage.
Okay.
So our ships were waiting at our cost.
Sure.
If we had given out our ships as a time charter, then yes, we were earning for them. But definitely ships standing at port, somebody was paying the bill.
Somebody's losing money.
Was losing money. So that wasn't a great period. There was a lot of uncertainty.
Right.
But what happened was during COVID, yes, there were less cars on the road and less consumption, but there was a certain amount of consumption that was happening and the flow of goods was not happening. So which basically meant power plants or steel plants were kind of usurping their stockpiles. So post-COVID, when the kind of movement picked up, there was a situation where most consumers had finished off all their stockpiles.
Okay.
And ramping up their volumes.
Okay.
So their demand for the product grew exponentially. They were ramping up volumes, so obviously they needed more product.
Okay.
B, their stockpiles was empty, so they also needed to replenish those stockpiles.
Okay.
So post-COVID, we saw two extremely firm years. I mean, there was a lot of buying going on, right?
22 and 23.
Mostly 21 and 22. These were the two kind of great years for dry bulk at least.
21 was pretty much in COVID, right?
20, by the end of 2020, more or less, not end also, let's say by October, November, ports had started functioning. Yes, COVID was still going on, but ports had started functioning.
Yeah.
So movement for us was kind of going okay. We did have a lot of operational issues in terms of where could we change the crew, what quarantine restrictions were being posed on the vessel. So yes, there were a lot of operational hassles, but kind of shipping was coming back.
Good. Okay.
But because the product had been kind of usurped and there was no stockpile, there was massive movement. So obviously there was a huge demand spike and obviously kind of people made kind of good money with it.
I see.
2023 was kind of a year we saw things kind of normalize. It's the initial part of 2023, in fact, shipping became too efficient, right? So rates were kind of going down.
Okay.
There weren't some major disruptions happening till we had Panama Canal kind of drying up and the rebel attacks at Red Sea, which then kind of had some effect. So with both Panama Canals drying up and Red Sea, Atlantic kind of started feeling the brunt of it, right? So there were lesser ships available in the Atlantic. So the Atlantic's market kind of shot up. So normally kind of whenever Atlantic market moves up, it cannot be that Atlantic market will move up on its own and the other two markets will be down.
Right.
I mean, a ship which is in Indian Ocean will quickly then calculate and say, hey, Atlantic is paying so much. So why should I keep trading in Indian Ocean? I should then start ballasting towards kind of Atlantic.
Okay.
And then if Atlantic goes up and then Indian Ocean also picks up, so obviously then Pacific will also kind of follow suit.
Right.
So that kind of got a little bit of life at least in the dry bulk sector.
Okay.
Again, we were in very kind of strange times, right? We were in the middle of two wars. So that also kind of had some kind of impact. Initially, there was kind of typically when war happens initially, the thing is, some trades are going to suffer. Like there's a huge grain trade happening from Ukraine, which kind of got suffered. So Black Sea as such suffered, but thereafter, other kind of, that grain has to be what export was happening. That the countries who were importing would have to then import from some other place.
Right.
So which in turn then, leads to Brazil picking up or Argentina or US Gulf or somewhere else kind of, fulfilling this deficit and then kind of slowly comes back on track.
I see.
So there is a very strong correlation to what's happening geopolitically over shipping.
Yeah.
And again, I keep going back to it. How you see the market, I mean, you would kind of need to believe which way it's heading and what position to kind of take. If you believe in something, take a position. If you're not sure, hedge it. So that's would kind of be the principle of how it goes.
Yeah. So these two sentences sort of summarizes the entire topic, that if you believe in something, take a position, and then you can expect windfall profits or windfall losses can happen. And if you don't believe, if you're not sure about it, then hedge.
And if you are wrong, please be smart enough or bold enough to admit that you are wrong and stop loss. So these would be the three basic mantras of kind of
understood. Got it. So I mean, you were actually we sort of stopped this going into the words and terms that you normally use, and I also just want to put this thought before you answer, before we go into the terms and all. And I know nothing over here is scripted, of course. So I'm sort of putting you in a spot over here. What are the 5, or maybe not 5, maybe a couple of errors or typical mistakes that people in chartering do, which you have learned out of your experience or something like that?
I mean, it's not 5. I mean, I can have a whole day of the kind of the kind of errors that we do. I think one of the biggest errors that happen is kind of complacency, right? I mean, you're dealing with one trade for a long time.
Okay.
You tend to think you know it all, right? So you know every information about the port. You know what is the weather there, so you know how to account it for. But keeping yourself abreast of this information is extremely important. I mean, I have n number of stories where I can tell you where, I think I knew everything about the port, but I constantly saw that a competitor was being so much more aggressive. And I was like, how is he being so aggressive? Until I realized that, a new private terminal has opened up over there, which has much more deeper draft. So you would kind of need to be abreast of this information. You cannot let complacency set in.
Okay.
Second would be, you have to be a little bit more disciplined in how you work. I mean, even if you have called that port, even if you know the trade like the back of your envelope, you would have to make the customary calls, to the agent to find out, hey, has something new happened?
Okay.
Is there some change? Has there some new rule come in? You would have to kind of judiciously study the route and say, okay, this thing that I have in my mind that the weather margin should be so much, is that correct? So sometimes we tend to kind of,
so I think the first and the second point is almost correlated.
Kind of correlated.
Yeah. You don't be complacent, you be disciplined.
And be kind of disciplined.
Yeah.
Sometimes there, especially when you're venturing into a new business, we sometimes tend to kind of think, suddenly you see the freight is very attractive and you're like, hey, the freight's so attractive, we must do this business, right? You should take a little bit more to understand what is it that you're getting.
Okay.
Sometimes you would maybe need to pay some tuition fees, right? You need to do the trade, make a couple of mistakes to kind of ensure that what's happening. And I think we constantly, we constantly keep talking about handover, right? When we fix, as chartering guys, we fix and we give a handover to the operations. And sometimes we tend to forget about it. I think hand back is also equally important. I mean, once the voyage has ended, you sit down with your operator and you go through the actual math of it.
Sort of debriefing of the...
Correct. That what you had accounted for, was it correct? What did it...
Helps you learn and
kind of numerically come down to it. Also, a major part of our job is kind of, say, customer handling, if I can use the term, right? I mean, you have your ship owners and you have your cargo owners. You would have to understand their pain points, Sometimes maybe chief rate is not all they want.
Sure.
Sometimes we tend to kind of over-know our customer. We kind of tend to know, oh, all he wants is cheap rate. But maybe not. Maybe you have to sit down with him, you have to meet him, you have to understand his pain point. And only when you understand his pain point and only when you are able to solve that, would that business happen again and again. And that pain point can be something very simple, or that pain point can be something that you can solve at no extra money. So again, it probably falls under the paradigm of complacency, but I think every time you have to kind of evaluate business, see it correctly, go meet your charterer, even if you've done 100 businesses together, to understand what is troubling.
Because ultimately you're doing business with a person and not just numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
and
human aspect.
I mean, I would still like to believe that, yes, shipping is analog and we are from analog, we are going digital. But there are some very nice things about shipping. I think this human element and this human interaction that we have in shipping is kind of quite special. I mean, I have my friends in other industries where they have not even spoken with a client, leave alone meeting them, right?
Are you talking about shipping industry or?
No, non-shipping industry, say finance or something where, kind of bots are doing all the communication or, the communication is happening through email. But there's nothing like, sitting with your charter or
having
with your
a cup of coffee,
for beer also, if that be the choice of beverage, and discussing what is the problem in hand and how do we solve it. That kind of helps.
That's absolutely, bang on, because and what you're saying is this is common in your trade, not like you're doing it alone, but everybody else is also. It's very common.
I mean, I would say so. I mean, how is it in your trade when you are trying to pitch for a business?
Of course.
Do you think
meeting
a person kind of makes you that much extra?
Absolutely. That is absolutely the case probably in every trade. In fact, I can tell you, even as a seafarer, especially as a master or chief engineer, just the fact that you are understanding the other person makes so much of a difference in the interactions we have with third party people that come on board a ship. And as a seafarer you have only that much of third party interaction, not at the scale at which you're having, or not at the scale at which I'm having right now as the founder of NavGuide. But when I was a seafarer even then, it's always that element, that human element is what connects us. And that makes a lot of sense, because I believe in one thing, that we probably don't realize it as much, that how much the value of an afterthought is after you leave somebody. Like, you have done a business, you have shaken hands, and then you have left. What is the thought in your mind about this interaction? Is it a good thought? It is a pleasant experience that you had? Would you like to come back to that coffee, back to that lunch? Or was it just hardcore business talk, just veiled as a lunch? Was it like just a business meeting veiled as a lunch, or was it a personal interaction which you want to come back to, where obviously business comes in the forefront, but that is another element which we sometimes also, I feel, miss out. But what you're saying, I completely agree with it.
And also, I think, again, I'm being very politically incorrect, but I'll take the liberty to continue being that. Also, it's just not, who you would at one point in time need to kind of like the person you're dealing with. I mean, I'm pretty sure as and when markets become more mature, I mean, there is not much of difference between the freight that I'm giving and my competitor is giving, right? Because market dynamics are more or less the same, right?
Right.
So we should be able to give the same freight. So then once both of you are giving the same freight, then it comes down to what extra are you giving? I mean, are you kind of managing your operations very well? Are you kind of empathetically listening to your client? Is your client just fond of you, right? I mean,
Fond of
yeah,
you.
he knows that, okay, when I was in trouble, this guy saved me out. I mean, today both of them are at the same freight, but I'll give him because I know in the past he has helped me out. He has scratched my back once, so I need to scratch his. So it's kind of quite. I mean, I'm kind of quite. I mean, this one thing about shipping, old school shipping till keeps me going.
Yeah.
Because I love kind of meeting the person, knowing what is going wrong, and how I can help him. And so many times we've got businesses because we've solved a very simple pain point of the customer, which didn't cost us anything extra, but it was such a big pain point to him that, and unfortunately nobody kind of went and asked him or had the opportunity where this pain point arose for the other person to understand.
Got it. So I think we are giving off all the trade secrets for you, but I think these are the magic sauces. What you're saying is being proactive, being disciplined about finding out the markets, not to be complacent, to be conscious about the customer's needs and to physically go meet them, to make yourself a likable person, because obviously we all know people take emotional decisions about even business decisions which are supposed to be logical. They start off as an emotional gut feeling, and very often those gut feeling are the right ones which we have seen. But I mean, so those are what you're saying are the magic sauces to give you that up edge over others in your profession, as much as it is true for other professions, but also it is very true for yours, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think beyond a certain point, I mean, irrespective of which division or which domain you're working, the ability to kind of sell, the ability to kind of manage people, expectations, clients, being empathetic towards the whole cause are the kind of key qualities that one needs to have to kind of, survive, I think, in any business.
Got it. So, that the technical part of it, that number crunching part of it, do you see AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning ever taking up your job? Do you see that happening in the next couple of years?
I don't think my job. I think every job that follows logic, that can be mathematically written, would eventually be done by a machine.
By a machine.
I don't have.
So do you see? Yeah.
I personally don't have any doubt about it.
Okay.
And I think what algorithmics. I mean, in fact, I would say shipping is kind of a little late to the party. I think financial trading. I think algorithmic trading happens early 90s. Bot trading happened early 20s, right? Early 2000s. We are still at 2023, 24, and shipping companies have just kind of started
catching up. Yeah.
But in my organization, we have some completely non-human other than writing it, developing it, and being, kind of working behind the program, but we have some quant models which are doing some trading.
Okay.
And they are outperforming the physical traders.
Really?
Yes. By a mile.
Wow.
By a mile. Let's not have any kind of, what will I say, notion that we are better. Yes, when there are black swan events, obviously the kind of the
bot
model doesn't have that expertise. I'm sure if you give them 10 more, 20 black swan events, they would be able to kind of do that as well. So yes, I'm kind of pretty sure that this in future this would kind of be done by not a human person but by a machine. Also, very interestingly, I had read this article which said that like when we negotiate a freight, right? There is always a bias.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's not, I mean, two humans interacting, the final agreed freight is not equilibrium.
Okay.
There is a bias, right?
Okay.
So maybe if you are a big
Somebody's
charterer,
gaining out of it.
you would kind of be able to muscle some, lower sense out of me. Or if I'm just more aggressive and you are like, let's say, more meek, I would be able to kind of bulldoze my way through
Yeah.
and, make the discussion or make the final little bit more favorable to my end. So when there are two humans negotiating, there would be a bias. But
Yeah.
when there would be two machines negotiating, it would kind of, be an equilibrium. And then, I mean, it's not just that. I mean, it would be the entire thing. I mean, blockchain would come. I mean, today, we just have access to our charter party, right? Okay, we know that whose cargo it is, who's the voyage charter, who's the shipper. But once blockchain comes in, we'll have an entire kind of, an entire idea of the whole paradigm, right?
Okay.
That with machine learning coming in, I mean, they have the ability to process, data which have of 3,000, 4,000 data sets. Which
billions of data points.
We wouldn't be able to kind of do that.
Of course.
So, yes, machine would definitely be doing it. Does that put me out of job? No, I don't think so. Because I think, to do all those programming, they would hopefully need some people like us to kind of sit down and kind of initially tell the machine how to do it. Because I see my research guys, they are kind of, constantly tweaking the data sets and seeing, okay, if this data set, is it, how much weightage is it having? They're kind of constantly, trying to understand what data set put in, what.
And they're understanding from you guys.
What effect, and also from the machine to see, if this thing which I'm saying is kind of, there are times when we have seen that, I am saying the market is going to go up, but the machine is saying the market is going to go down. And these are great discussions because then we need to understand from the machine why is it saying that it's going to go down.
Right.
And then the machine comes out with an answer like, traditionally in the last 10 years, they've never seen so many ballasters going to that region. So that's why it's going down, which I, having chatted with my brokers, or somehow I've missed that information. So I think it's going to be a good discussion.
Yeah.
I think we would be required to first get the program up and running, tell the machine how it is, and secondly, to kind of constantly keep working with the machine to see how is it that,
Yeah, I mean, see, the way we will eventually be a man-machine interface, a hybrid of machine and man, human beings combined, how that will shape up for different professions. Your guess is as good as mine that we don't really know how eventually it's going to happen, because probably there are programs that are writing programs that are writing programs. So we used to imagine that a program can be written by a human being, but now no, programs are writing other programs. So the information could be channelized in various ways and other things. But would you be open to sharing any live example of something that you have seen, like a man-machine kind of where you were working with a machine or something like that has happened with you? Or
yes, we did kind of in our organization, we did kind of develop some of these quant models where when we were trying to, I mean, obviously there was a lot of data that was given to it. We ourselves were trying to kind of understand what component of it was kind of having kind of a role to play in it. So there was a lot of kind of discussions that was happening within the team, with the researcher, with the people who were kind of, who were kind of developing the entire thing.
Yeah.
That was in fact a very exhilarating experience for me, where we understood what, that, I mean, what sometimes seems to us as, something that we kind of do daily, we kind of know it, how there are actually so many
layers to it.
Okay. And how when you put it down, you realize, oh my God, there are so much data
so
that
much
we
are thinking.
And I think it makes you also better, because you then try to say that, okay, if, I just that one phone call is not enough. I would need to kind of study more and more into it to kind of understand how am I kind of looking into the entire thing of it. But as I said, we've kind of have, I mean, most shipping companies today do have some kind of quant models or algorithmic trading models which are going on, which are trying to predict the market, which are already trading without any human interface. And from what I see in my organization and what I hear from my friends from their organization, they're all doing
better. But what is interesting is that you still have a human being taking the final decision right now for across the board.
Some models that we have are completely machine made. They are,
Okay.
I mean, yes, we have given a little lesser mandate to those machines, but these machines are constantly, doing something. And many a times it has happened, where I have been on the buy side and the machine has been on the sell side, right?
Okay.
And then I kind of try and look into it, that why is it that the machine is having a thought which is completely different to me. But then again, I also differ sometimes with my colleagues, so
Right.
so there's nothing wrong
There's nothing
in it,
wrong
or
in
there's
that.
nothing
That's
right
still
in it.
human. Yeah.
It's just that you have a notion and somebody else has a different notion.
Right.
But it's kind of, honestly, I'm quite excited about it. I mean, the
Okay.
fear of saying that a machine is doing better than me, but I'm kind of quite excited for it because I think this will only make the market more mature.
But isn't this going to cut off all the... See, a machine is as good as you can pay for. I mean, and that's also pretty much not an affordability issue anymore, because we have access to technology that is far beyond what we could have imagined even 10 years back today. So what I'm trying to say is that is if, across the world, the sense that I'm getting is most of the time there's a human being taking the final call even now. But let's imagine a time 5-10 years down the line or 8 years down the line where there are only machines taking decisions. There is no, because over the years, machines have proven that we take better decisions than you guys. So let us take decisions. Okay, this is a number game. We are good in number crunching. It makes sense that the machine takes the final decision. But isn't it going to even out all possibilities of anybody having an edge over the other? Like even the fact that you said, you just pointed out 3 specific traits which can make you a better commercial trader. And you spoke about communication. You spoke about being aware of your surroundings. A machine has absolutely even in those areas. So is anybody going to be better than anybody else, or everybody? Because everybody cannot win, then nobody is winning.
My basic understanding would be 2 machines would reach an equilibrium, and it will be an absolute
win-win for everybody.
Yeah, kind of a state for everybody, until and unless one machine then kind of becomes a little smarter than the other machine, and then comes a bias into it. But having said that, when we first heard of unmanned ships, right, and we were like, no way is this going to happen, right? But the more and more we kind of see it, the more and more we kind of, or at least I kind of see that, yes, I see where this is going.
Okay.
And I think the earlier we embrace it, I think better. Yes, as humans, there are some things that you're good at, but then there are also some things that you're not good at. And I think, I think a machine will kind of do a fairly good job.
Right.
Definitely, there would be some kind of, what will I say, kind of a permutation combination which would work in, wherein there would have to be some kind of, if not anything, just to code it or just to develop it or just to ensure that it's running well, there would be some kind of human intervention.
Right.
But yeah,
eventually probably that also will come down, because they will be learning enough to, because the exponentiality of, the amount of information is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So yeah. And let's say 5 years down the line, 2 machines negotiating a real deal, one from the buyer side, one from the seller side. And before they reach to a conclusion, is it a fair thing to say that I could hire probably a really smart college kid to hack into your machine and put a bias into your machine so that I gain over you? Is it hacking? Probably is that going to, do you see that as a real threat?
Probably I could be. I'm not very super kind of clued
Sure
into
about it, because there'll be protective layers
Exactly.
also.
I mean, with,
of course, there'll be protections.
I mean, 20 years back, I was so scared to kind of make any online payment. But now, I mean, we can't do anything without it. Right?
Exactly.
So machines also have kind of becoming more and more safe. And I pretty much feel that the way we are progressing, we don't know, I mean, what's going to happen 10 years from now, or what's going to happen 15 years from now.
Right.
So it is where it is. Right now, I'm quite enjoying what I'm doing, and I just hope that I continue to enjoy what I'm doing, whatever role works out or comes out for me.
Fantastic. Great. That was the podcast, and we have pretty much come to the end of it. I think our journey started from the past. It came into the present and what you're doing, and it almost went into the future.
Yes.
7-8 years into the future. That's fantastic. I think it was a great, I'm sure, I hope you've also...
No, absolutely. I mean, I mean, no shame in saying that I've broken my podcast virginity today. So it was kind of a great experience for me. It's always great chatting with you. I mean, we've had numerous such chats before. Good, we could kind of do it in a formal, semi-formal, informal kind of a setting.
Right.
And hopefully what we discussed, it could be of some use to, the people listening to it or viewing this. And I mean, if anybody has any questions, then feel free to reach out to me.
Right.
If they have a different opinion, I mean, I would love to hear it and then maybe give my 2 cents to it.
Fantastic. I'll with your permission, of course, I'll be putting your social media links also in the podcast if you agree to that.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely on board.
Thank you so much, Shurid. It was lovely chatting with you as always, and I'll definitely hope to see you back in the studio sometime again for probably a version 2 of this, of sometime with a different perspective. And we have a lot of other things to discuss as well. So yeah, hopefully soon.
Like we say in Dubai, inshallah, it will happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shurid.